Hi, so for my project, I'm going to be talking about the history of Dutch cheese. So, part of the reason why I decided to choose this as my topic is because when we were in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, it was really obvious that cheese was very popular. As you can see on the left, that's a picture from Google Maps just of a small portion of Amsterdam. See that there's a cheese store pretty much on every street, around every corner. It was really popular. Pretty much anytime you were hungry, you could rely on a cheese shop or museum being right around the corner to have free snacks and fill you up before your next meal. The cheese was absolutely delicious. There were so many different types, and the variety of free samples was really impressive. So this got me thinking. I wanted to know why cheese was such a big part of Dutch history and kind of how this came to be and where the popularity came from. On the right is just an image from inside the one of the cheese museums or the cheese museum in Amsterdam. You can see all the different barrels and varieties of cheese, the free samples on a bunch of different tables. So before we can talk about cheese in modern day Netherlands, we have to look at the history behind where cheese came from, how it made its way to Europe, and then eventually to the Dutch people. So, um, the origins of cheese are not well known. You can pretty much trace it back to when the um, domestication of milk-producing animals first occurred. Um, but there's no decisive point in time when you can say this is when cheese production really started and this is when cheese was first produced. There's a lot of theories around when the first time cheese was produced actually occurred. The most promising seems to be that it was an accident. They think a farmer stored a dairy product, some milk from one of these animals, and it just turned into cheese over time. But this is a theory, it's not actually known. It could have been an intentional experiment, no one's really sure. The origins are pretty blurry. However, although the specific first time is not known, there is evidence that cheese has been around for a really long time. There were some cheese products found in a 3,000-year-old Egyptian tomb. So it's been around for a really long time and its popularity has only grown over time. In Europe specifically, the earliest evidence has been found in Poland of cheese, just in Europe. The specifically in Amsterdam, recently there were pots, clay pots, like the earthenware pots on the left side of the screen, that were found to be traced back to about 800 BC. These pots were used to make cheese, and the pots that were found by these archaeologists have residues of cheese on them, showing that the cheese has been in the Netherlands and part of Dutch culture for a long time. So fast forwarding a bit to the Roman Empire, this is a time period when cheese is very well known, very widespread all across Europe. Um, this period contributed a lot to different techniques that were used to produce different types of cheese, refine the product, make a better result, and just different ways to actually produce it were experimented with. So this leads us into the Middle Ages when cheese exports began to increase in the specifically in the Netherlands. So because this the Dutch people, their landscape it's below sea level. This makes the land really fertile and the climate's pretty humid, which makes it really good for grass. So grass grows really plentifully. It is very healthy, very full. And grass-fed animals that, like the ones that are milk producing, really love this. And this makes them very healthy, very well fed, which results in their milk being of higher quality and ultimately resulting in them producing better cheese. So in the Netherlands, cheese production really can be traced back to ramping up during this time period in the Middle Ages. So this is when exports of this product began with the Dutch people. Markets and warehouses that were exclusive for cheese started to pop up here and there. The warehouse on the left side of the screen is the Way Warehouse. It is um was a major warehouse during this time period. It started out as a warehouse for many different exports and products. But eventually, over time, it just became exclusive for cheese. Today, you can still go there. It's not a restaurant, so you can't, it doesn't actually weigh anything anymore, but you can still go in and see the scales while you eat dinner, which is pretty cool. Also, during this time, the Gouda was first produced. This is the most popular Dutch cheese. Um, it had an extreme popularity within the Dutch people themselves, and it also was a really desirable international trading product. So it came from the town of Gouda, um, and it was there was a big market in this town that sold this type of cheese that grew in popularity. And this kind of went to skyrocket the whole Dutch cheese trade in general. Also, during this time period in 1491, the church declared that you could consume cheese during fasting, which again made it a really desirable product because it was something that they could consume while they were fasting. So this skyrocketed its popularity even further among the Dutch people, which drove the incentive for new innovative techniques and the production of this product within the Netherlands, which then leads us into the increase in international trade that occurred during the Dutch Golden Age. So, this is the time period overall when the Dutch are the most economically prosperous. Exports of everything began to increase. The Dutch were really successful in trade, art. They were having a lot of scientific discoveries, and their economy was really successful during this period of time. Um, a big contributor to this was cheese. Um, Exports of this product began to rise a lot during this period. You can see on the left, that's just a painting of ships coming into the ports in Dutch ports, just doing some trading. And on the left of the screen is just a still life of cheese from this time period. So you can see not only was it a big part of their economy, but it was also a big part of their day-to-day life. It was synonymous with wealth and it was kind of associated with economic prosperity. So that was kind of the symbolism behind a lot of the paintings. Also, during this period, cheese markets, as I mentioned earlier, they started to pop up during the Middle Ages, but they really started to ramp up during the Golden Age. This was a place where the cheese farmers could sell their product and they could negotiate with buyers a price that would work for everybody and kind of sell their stuff off. So the Alkmaar cheese market can be seen on the right side of the screen. This is one of the oldest, or this is the oldest existing cheese market in the Netherlands. Um, it has been around for a very long time, since 1593. Um, and it's still around today. You can still go. It's open the last Friday of March, the last Friday in September. Every Friday, 10 to 1, you can go and you can buy some cheese. But this, during the Dutch Golden Age, this was a really big this was a really popular market and it produced and sold a ton of cheese for the Dutch people. So this was actually called the capital of Dutch cheese, and there's its own cheese museum in this town today. Um, Cheese production from here, from this time period, just kept steadily increasing, and this brings us to cheese production in the 18th and 19th century. So when we were in Amsterdam, we got a chance to visit one of the Henry Billig museums and cheese shops in Zenshez, Netherlands, which was really cool. We got to see an insight of what cheese production was like in the early 18th and 19th century. So we got an insight to all the different cheese making techniques. This town also had a lot of farms, wood mills, wooden shoemaking, and beautiful traditional Dutch architecture. So you can see on the right side of the screen, or the left side of the screen, that's just an image of one of the farms. This is what the farms would pretty much look like in the 18th century. They didn't really haven't really changed much. And then on the left is just us inside the museum trying some delicious treat inside the shop, trying some delicious cheese samples. So cheese farms were the traditional method that was used for cheese production up until the 1900s. After this point, cheese and dairy factories kind of started to pop up everywhere, and more modern techniques that involved machines and mass manufacturing became a lot more popular. But even today, a lot of Dutch companies still prefer to use traditional methods to produce their product. So, although more modern techniques started to come up, a lot of places didn't really adopt them. They were still using traditional methods as it was a little bit, they felt it was a little bit more authentic and produced better products than more mass-produced stuff. So this is from also inside the cheese shop in Sanchez. You can see on the right side of the screen is one of the tubs used to make cheese, and then instructions in Dutch were posted on the walls that explained how cheese was actually produced. And it's a really, really lengthy process that takes many years because the cheese, or a few years, few months, few years, because the cheese needs to age to get to the quality that is good for public consumption. Oh, sorry. Okay, so moving on, the part of the reason I decided to do this topic was because of the Henry William Museum and shop that we got to see while we were in the Netherlands. So I wanted to talk a little bit about him. I was curious about how he got his start. So he became really famous when he made a cheese that was similar to Gouda, but he made it from goat's milk instead of traditional cow's milk. He won many prizes, and currently his supply reaches over 35 countries worldwide. So that's pretty impressive. Him and his wife in the picture on the right, they founded the company together. They got their love for cheese making when they took a class together. Henry grew up on a farm with his parents, and they took a class together, learned how to make cheese, and decided to make a company about it. And it's been great ever since. They produce many different types of cheese. They say that the key to making good cheese is to have animals that are both happy and healthy, so well taken care of and fed the right things, and that'll produce the best cheese. They decided not to use any chemical fertilizers or pesticides, so that also helps increase their quality of cheese. So this is just one of the many popular cheese producers currently in the Netherlands. Um, and you can see that in Sanchez, they made a it's called like a cheese experience. So they go through, there are workers there dressed in traditional Dutch costumes that are handing out traditional Dutch outfits from the 18th, 19th century, and they're handing out all different types of delicious samples with jam that you can try. They also will go through a demonstration showing how cheese was made during this time period. We didn't get to see that because we went a little bit later in the day, but it would have been something I was really interested to see. I kind of looked up a few YouTube videos to get a feel for it. It was pretty interesting. So that brings us to cheese today. The Netherlands still produces about 800 million kilograms of cheese every single year, and about two-thirds of this is actually exported out to other countries. And in 2022, they exported about 5.9 or $5.19 billion of cheese out of the country. So in 2022, they were the second leading cheese export country in the world, which is still pretty impressive, and it um is synonymous with their historical impressive production of this product. So that is pretty much all I have to talk about. On the right side of the screen are just some images from the cheese museum in Amsterdam that we went to. Again, you can see all the different types and the delicious free samples that are around every corner. So this is a really interesting topic to get to learn about, and I'm very glad I chose this for my presentation. These are my sources, and this is my citations for my images. And that's all.